At L'Amour Media Versatility, we aim to provide comprehensive solutions to our clients. We have a team of experienced professionals who can help you with every aspect of your media needs. From documentation and marketing to promotion and more, we provide our clients with top-notch quality services. We understand that each client is unique and has specific needs. That's why our team works closely with you to understand your company and event goals and objectives. We are committed to providing the highest quality services in media and strive to exceed our clients' expectations. Our team is passionate about helping you reach your goals and making sure you get the best experience and results. If you're looking for a reliable business to help you with all your media needs, look no further than L'Amour Media Versatility. Contact us today to get started at 252-497-3817 or at www.lamour-photos.com.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of Colorful Voices of Sisterhood are their own and do not represent L'Amour Media Versatility, that of any broadcast networks utilized, its advertisers, or sponsors. All content is subject to copyright and may not be reproduced in any form without prior written consent by L'Amour Media Versatility. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of Colorful Voices of Sisterhood are for general public information and entertainment purposes only.
The stories of American Indians and Alaska Natives are as varied and nuanced as the people themselves. But the latest study from the National Institute of Justice finds one troubling through line that links these stories: the experience of high rates of violence. Like songs and oral histories, science can raise awareness by quantifying the severity of violence. It's time to hear what the numbers are saying. The vast majority of American Indian and Alaska Native women and men have experienced violence in their lifetime, and 1 in 3 have experienced recent violence in the past year. Those levels are higher than the general population, but that's not where the inequalities end. The study also measures a range of impacts as well as services needed because of violence. What's behind those numbers? Let's start with the finding that for American Indians and Alaska Natives, violence doesn't discriminate by gender. Women and men share similar rates of victimization. That means almost 3 million American Indian and Alaska Native women and men have been victims of violence. To put that number in perspective, imagine if everyone in the state of Iowa stood up, or every resident of Orlando, Dallas, Detroit, Anchorage, and Atlanta combined. That's the scale of the violence, but what about the scope? The NIJ study breaks types of violence into 4 categories, and violence against American Indians and Alaska Natives is high across all of them. Take stalking, for example. It can be a gateway to more aggressive violence, and repeated, unwanted, fear-inducing experiences come in many forms. Lifetime estimates of stalking for women in the study are almost double those of non-Hispanic whites. Add male and female victims together, and that's more than 1.2 million people. That would fill 20 sports stadiums if every single ticket holder had been stalked. Being forced or coerced to engage in unwanted sexual activity is another form of violence, a form all too familiar to American Indians and Alaska Natives. For example, These mothers, daughters, and sisters face almost 2 times the risk of sexual violence with penetration as non-Hispanic white women. Overall rates of physical violence by intimate partners in the past or present are even higher, from being shoved to having a gun or knife used on them. More than 1 in every 2 women and more than 1 in every 3 men have experienced physical violence by intimate partners in their lifetimes, comparatively much higher than the physical victimization rates over the lifetimes of non-Hispanic whites. Of course, not all violence is sexual or physical, so the NIJ study also examines psychological aggression. For example, expressions of anger that seem dangerous or humiliating, or controlling access to birth control. Overall, psychological aggression affects more than 1 in every 2 women and men. Psychological aggression may not be as obvious as broken bones or bruises, but it is real. Among victims, 63% of women report partners tracking them, and 55% of women report being kept from family or friends. These are just a few findings, but remember, they are numbers that correspond to real victims who would fill the entire state of Iowa. Now picture if 97% of women and 90% of men in Iowa were victimized by people of other races and ethnicities, interracial perpetrators who violated the safety of their schools, workplaces, parks, homes, and bedrooms. Numbers alone don't tell the whole story, but they do point to a dangerous gap. Most federally recognized tribes don't have the legal authority to criminally prosecute non-Indians, even for crimes committed on tribal lands. So, what does it all mean? The impacts of high rates of violence against American Indians and Alaska Natives range from missed days of work or school to physical injuries. It's not surprising that services are needed, like medical care to treat injuries. But here's where the NIJ results uncover another glaring disparity. Almost 40% of female victims who need services can't get them, compared with only 15% of non-Hispanic white female victims who fall through the cracks. American Indians and Alaska Natives deserve better, and now there is science to prove it. These numbers are not abstract. They bear witness to real people, mothers, girlfriends, brothers, and grandfathers. Our hope is that this study will lead to a story of a new beginning, one where all of us listen to what the science is saying, what the victims are saying, and unite to prevent violence wherever it happens.
Welcome back to our Colorful Voices of Sisterhood show today. We got a treat for you today from our very own. We will be talking about the history of the missing, murder, indigenous women. Our very own sister, Raquel Painter, will educate us today on it. So, Raquel, I turn it into your hand.
Thank you, Diana. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic that's near and dear to my heart. May 5th is coming up this Friday, and it is deemed to be MMIW Awareness Day. It is Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. It's an epidemic that's been going on in our country, but very little has been done about it. So today we're going to educate our viewers on MMIW and what it is. And the statistics, once we get talking about it, is staggering. on what is going on. Missing, murdered Indigenous women. You're talking grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters, cousins, nieces, that is getting murdered at alarming rates, and nothing is being done. A lot of stuff has to do with it. I think it stems from just Native culture and the history of Native Americans. When you think about boarding schools, for example, the abuse that Native Americans endured in those boarding schools definitely carried on. We are still getting abused. Native women are abused at a rate 10 times the amount of a non-Native woman. That is staggering statistics there. So a lot of abuse, and I'm definitely want to put it out there that it's not just women. It's the men and children. It's our elderly that are getting abused. I'm going to read this statistic here. A lot of studies have been done on it, since 2015 is really when the awareness really started coming up about the statistics. But when you're talking about, the National Crime Information Center, this was in 2016. They reported that there were 5,712 reports of missing American Indian and Alaska Native women and girls. But through the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Missing Person Database, there was only 116 cases logged.
So somewhere somebody didn't record some information.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely not getting reported, which means it's probably not getting acted on.
Right.
So you're talking about over 5,000 people that year, men and women missing, and nothing is being done about it.
What's the highest area that you believe that this is happening in?
Well, they actually had the statistics on that. A lot of it is where there's large numbers of Indigenous women. But when you look at the national numbers, Indigenous women only make up 2% of the U.S. population.
Why do you think it's not being reported?
Well, I think
What would be the cause?
In my opinion, I really think it has to do with the stigma that's associated with Native Americans.
Which is?
Ever since, we were colonized, we were projected as uncivilized, savages. Once we got on reservations, then, we're portrayed as lazy, alcoholics, drug addicts. I mean, so I really think that people really don't care like they should be caring. I'm watching the movie that Hillary Swank is starring in. It's called Alaska Daily. So she's a reporter that's working up there in Alaska that is researching a missing Indigenous woman. And they're uncovering a lot of stuff, which, I'm only halfway through, so I'm finishing it up. But it comes down to even the police, law enforcement in that area didn't bother to really put their time and effort into finding her or what happened to her. The Daily News that she currently works for recognized that they didn't do the story justice on that. So I think there's a lot of injustices going on with the Native American community pertaining to this specifically. So it's staggering that we have a day identified just for this. So everybody can look it up. May 5th, it is the official MMIW Day. The president signed it. And it's recognized in both U.S. and Canada.
Yes, I was reading about it. Yeah. And it's very, very important, because this is one of the awareness that it has to be done. But I just have to ask this question, Raquel.
Yes.
So the crimes, murdered, rape, do you think, does it start in the reservation, do you think? It has to start somewhere.
It definitely has to start somewhere, but it's on both sides. So the abuse, the rape, the murder is done by non-natives also. Yes. So I
read that
really
too.
think it's just the portrayal on how people view Native women, which is totally opposite from our culture, because we are a matriarch society. That I remember when well, not like I was there back then. I'm not that old, but when the colonizers came, there were, especially when they met the Cherokee Nation here, and they saw that the women had equal rights with the men that were in the tribe, and they could not believe that existed, because the colonizers came from a patriarch society. Obviously, that's what we are now, is a patriarch society. But Native culture, women still have the same opportunities as the men do.
It's just wow. When you say that, I was reading, I may have talked to you a while back in reference to Columbus Day, how we call ourselves celebrating. If we really look at the understanding of what it is, we would think twice about actually celebrating it the way it is celebrated.
Yes, because that was the start of colonization for us. And now a lot of people are really going to Indigenous Peoples Day. So they're celebrating Indigenous Day on Columbus Day. So a lot of states have adapted it. The U.S. has adapted it. So I think times are changing, but you're absolutely right. When I was in school, we celebrated Columbus Day. And I remember where we made pilgrim hats, and we made the feathers, and here I am, a Native American student. Like, obviously, they said I was the Native Americans, I wore the feather thing. But how uneducating is that for a child?
Right.
I know my kids, when they're elementary, they would come home and, okay, maybe something like that.
Yeah. But people
History.
just don't think that. As a child, you don't, but as a Native American child, I did. I was like, oh my gosh. Obviously they're having me put that on, but that's not what I would wear.
Right.
I'm a Native child. I would not wear that.
Right.
So
how do you go to educate even generations behind you? So when they start to do these plays and stuff in school, how do we go to that point where we educate them about?
I think now we're starting to have a voice. So
Good.
you see a lot of the Native Americans out there. They are protesting. They are, we have a case going on right now in North Carolina. They were just up at the state capitol. There's a charter school here that is not letting let a Native boy in because of his hair. They want him to cut his hair because they got regulations. Not understanding Native culture, the hair is sacred.
Yes.
And they didn't rule it. So it really was just this Thursday that we're going up there to march on that and protest it. But here we are, 2023, and people do not understand that. And Native Americans were very big on our culture. It was taken away from us for so long.
Yes.
And we're just now starting to get it back. Languages are just now coming back. They're teaching it in the schools now. I mean, so there's a lot of cultural stuff that is coming back to us, so they want to keep it. And then to tell a mother her child cannot go to school because of his hair does not fit the regulation.
I think one of the problem in our society right now also is being close-minded.
Yes.
I agree.
They are not open-minded.
Well, and not even to the point where they want to learn, to be willing to learn about the different cultures. This is why this show always is so important to me, because we get a chance to learn about each other's culture.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's sad that, in 2023, the indigenous people were the first ones here.
Yes.
We were the first ones
So
here.
that's why I was actually thinking about that. I'm like, how is it? This is you. This is your culture. This is your country. How like switch to taking everything away from you? Now you're trying to find something that is original to you. So how that makes you feel? Actually, like I'm listening, like trying to get back to stuff like this is yours. It belongs to you.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like people view us as less than, because they don't value what we feel or deem is important to our culture.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel devalued or minimized. You know, if you can't portray who you are, what you are, and for so long they smothered us where we couldn't celebrate our culture. You know, so that there and it was, you know, generation thing that they couldn't do it. You know, I mentioned boarding schools on a couple of our episodes when we go back to talking about boarding schools. There was so much trauma done to the Native American people during that time frame. You know, we're still trying to get out of that. We're still trying to recover from that trauma.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about, imagine as mothers, we're all mothers, people coming in through that door and taking your kid from you, and you have no say in it, and they ship them off to a school that you cannot go visit. There's a language barrier. You don't know what's going on. It was, and a lot of those children didn't make it home. Yeah. You know, right now they're digging up mass graves of children that were at boarding schools. And this is the type of stuff that goes on in the Native culture that we have to work through and find out a way, how do we help ourselves, but the resources are limited. Resources are limited, especially back then during the boarding schools. My grandmother, I'm one generation removed from boarding school. My grandmother was a product of boarding school. You know, so when you hear about the stuff that happened to her, there's so much anger and hate, you know, that's my grandmother that happened to. You know, and it's ugly stuff that happened to them.
It is. It's hard to imagine something that really belonged to you. Someone has to take away from you. Then they have to give you some percentage of something you own.
Right.
Yeah.
This is really what is happening. And they take your identity, and not only that, the trauma behind it, the suffer behind it, and now they control something that you're supposed to own.
Yes,
So this is what's happening to Native American. How you really that makes you feel. I know you this is your country, you've been, and but how you really like deep down you feel about what you think you can do for the next generation. I don't want to cry, but
I think it's shows like this. Let the people be aware of it, because they don't teach it in school.
Right.
They don't talk about the genocide against the Native Americans, because it was genocide that happened in our country, all the way from them putting smallpox on the blankets that they gave to the Native Americans. You know, they made them, you know, when they left their homeland and they had to walk across the country in snow, a lot of the elders didn't make it. You know, a lot of the children didn't make it. You know, so there's so much trauma in Native American history that nobody's talking about.
So in saying that, it just kind of remind me of even our culture. You know, where we feel like we're still fighting just to have a voice. We're still fighting to be treated for something that's really ours.
Yeah.
The mental health part of it. You know, I celebrate you every year when you put on the powwow, because I think that's helping your culture, but it's also educating cultures around you.
Yes.
The events that we all put on is helping educate, because the mental health, and just to imagine your grandmother and all still having a forgiving heart for people that just damage them for no reason. It's like one culture feel like they can dominate another culture for no earthly reason.
Yeah.
You know, and to kill them, but we still have that forgiving heart to go back. But we got to teach. How do we go back to teach? You putting on the powwow, the events that you put on, this platform now of talking about it, because I want to know, what can I do to help?
I think what people can do and our viewers can do is really educate. Educate yourselves, educate your loved ones, just so that it doesn't continue, because it is still continuing. There's a lot of injustices that we see each of us experience an injustice, you know. So I think we have the platform, you viewers have a platform to make sure awareness is done and change happens, because that's the only way change is going to happen is if people know about it, we talk about it, and we figure out ways to make it better.
And a good thing, I'm sorry, and a good thing is we're starting to get people in positions up in the White House in areas there that represent all cultures.
Yes.
But we still got to get involved locally to have that voice.
Yeah.
Because that mental health piece, you know, even with your children.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got a grandbaby now. That mental health piece can keep going on until we get involved.
That's right.
That's right.
That's
So,
right.
some people too, they think it's too heavy to talk about certain things, and we cannot go there. Yes, you have to go there to heal. We have to go there because we have to educate the next generation. And you might not did it. My grandparents might did. My grandparents, you might not proud what they did, but it does not mean we cannot talk about it. You know, that's the hard things we have as a community and family. And we cannot talk about some things. We have to let it go. No, you cannot let it go until you deal with the past by respectfully, by educating. Not it doesn't have to be hatred. It doesn't have to be violence. But we can talk about the differences and say, hey, this is what happened to the past, so we don't have to repeat to go on in our future. So we have to acknowledge, recognize, and moving forward.
Yeah,
Which
and I
we're
think
breaking
that's the
generation
key.
curses there. That's
Yes.
what we're doing now. We're breaking generation curses.
And I
that
think
went on.
the acknowledgement piece of it is
Yes.
important
Very.
to acknowledge that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we're not, because it's not discussed.
Right.
That's part of our history that people are not learning. You know,
we often hear about, okay, we need to educate our community, our organizations, the whole America, what have you. Be the voice. Let's share this. But so it's easy. It's just so easy for us to say these things. But really, how are we gonna go out there? I mean, you cannot just give it to me. Hey, here's the link.
yeah, you
We
gotta
have
make
to
our
have an
voices heard.
active community awareness. You know, like
You have
oftentimes we need to do that. We cannot just do it just one time and then that's it.
No.
It can be easily forgotten.
Yeah, and I think that's why advocacy is so important. Is to make sure people are advocating for change, so change happens.
Ben.
You know, I just mentioned about the little boy who they wanted to cut his hair or he can come back to school. They went up to Capitol Hill in North Carolina to advocate for that child. And people from across the states banded together to do that. Yeah. That's what needs to happen. You know, it's hard for a mother, you know, I hate to say it, for one person to say it, but if you got that one person with 10,000 people behind her, that's a different view for the legislators to see.
Yeah.
So I think advocating is the biggest thing a person can do.
So sometimes people are afraid. They agree with you, but they're afraid to go out there because if I say in the public, people, they might not like me. They might start viewing me different way. It means that if you believe in the right thing to do it. You know, you have to stay by what is right. And if you look back the history for those pay the price.
Yeah.
And I think it can be done, but it takes individually willingly to make a difference.
And that's one thing. Life is so short.
Yes.
Don't have regrets.
That's right.
Don't have any regrets. You know, a lot of people are not going to agree with what your thoughts are, what your opinions are, but don't have any regrets for holding your silence.
And it's amazing that we all have said on this show. I hear Fatil say all the time, if I die, I'm going to die empty. And that's what we're all doing. We're putting it out there. Yeah. But one voice can change. It took one lady to take prayer out of school. So one person can make a difference if we just start. Because there's somebody just waiting to say, okay, what do I got to do to help?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you started Powwow, it was you, but look at how many other people joined
Oh, yes.
on that.
Yes.
So I think if we all use our voice,
Voice.
use our
Yeah, do our
platform,
part.
talk about
Yes.
our part.
Yeah.
Because when you did the Filipinas, you contacted me. I was telling everybody. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about it.
Yeah.
But I was able to learn even that hard dance you was doing, because I went home trying to I was like, Lord.
With the glass dance.
Yes. But that was amazing that I get a chance to learn the different cultures. And also, we have so much similarity of the different struggles that our culture have had.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I know I went to Africa, and I was drawn to the villagers. I got to spend the day with the local villagers, and they had beadwork on. But the beadwork was similar to the Native American beadwork. And here we are, 2 continents apart, and that similarity. So I was talking to them. The colors meant something. Our colors mean something. I was just amazed at the similarity just in that. And it's something they wear proudly. It's something I wear proudly. So there are, Diana, you are absolutely right. There are more similarities than there are differences.
Yeah, because we are connected.
After
Yeah.
all,
Make
we're
fun.
all brothers and sisters
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
whole world.
Yes.
But there's a question here. Maybe you can answer
Okay.
this, Raquel. Let's see here. Where is it? From Miss Barnes.
Okay.
I agree it's very important to educate yourself. But how do we navigate the misinformation that is instilled in our children early on in schools? Do you know or any educational groups that are supporting actual and honest curriculum for the indigenous population?
On that one there, I definitely know from an indigenous perspective is that we need more advocating. We need more advocating up at all levels of government. We definitely need our voices heard in that aspect. When you look at indigenous people, we are the first ones here, but we are the smallest population here. So advocating, I think at all levels of government is what we need. We need strong people who can do that. We need a lot of, my thing is educating our generations past us. We need lawyers.
Yes.
We need doctors. We need teachers. We need that Native population to step up and fill those roles for the community, so that change can happen within too. I definitely want to mention we just got our first Native American in charge of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The first one at the last election. And here we are. The BIA handles all tribal lands. We just got our first indigenous lady up there to run it.
See, this is why I think, get involved, not going in the political realm, but getting involved with the politics to say, this is what we need. Because what y'all fighting for don't make no sense, but this is what we need on this level right here. Getting involved and putting people in places that can help generations.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with powwow, you want it to go on. So you got to teach these generations behind us.
Yes.
That's why nonprofits are so important to me. Even to start a nonprofit of getting out there with the indigenous women, getting out there.
Yeah.
Because when I was thinking just women, I didn't realize it was the men and all.
Yes, man. Right now, the statistics I just pulled, 83%.
Wow.
83%
Well,
of
you kill off
indigenous
if
men.
you kill off the men, you kill off the generation, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens. Even we say that in African American culture, if you kill the man, our culture is gone.
Oh yeah,
You know?
And and that reminds me, that was a slogan. If you kill the Indian, yeah. And I was like, what? And that was a slogan, a propaganda that went about. They wanted to kill the Indians so that the savagery or whatever their perception of Native Americans were gone. So that was the whole thing about taking the children.
They're the first people who came, right?
Yes.
Here in America.
So what is
With welcome arms.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So Thanksgiving, I know you guys were saying about Colombia's holiday. So about Thanksgiving, and I know some friends, they say that we're not going to celebrate Thanksgiving because the history behind it. But now people celebrate to
Yeah. So in my house, I do celebrate Thanksgiving, but not in the meaning that most people have.
Right.
I celebrate
Christmas and all
Thanksgiving
that
with
stuff.
my family to be thankful for what we have. So we do a traditional Thanksgiving at my house where we smudge everybody. You know, we do a dinner plate for our ancestors that have passed. So we do it in a cultural sense, a spirituality sense, and then we all say what we are thankful for. But it's not the Thanksgiving that most people celebrate with the first pilgrim meal or that type of stuff. Because a lot of people, when it comes to that education, the Native Americans are the one who taught them how to cultivate the land, how to plant corn,
Yes.
how to rotate that out so the soil doesn't go bad. You know, otherwise they wouldn't have survived.
Right.
Yes.
They would not have survived in the land that they were just coming to, didn't know anything about it. That first winter, wherever they're at, they would not have survived. You know, so when you think about, you know, the Native people, and Diana, you mentioned earlier about that forgiveness of it. You know, you have to forgive. I'm sure there's a
Yes.
lot of them out there that don't. You know, just like with any culture. But I think Native people, by, you know, design, we are caring, loving people.
Yes.
So I don't know if something would have changed, knowing, you know, when, you know, I think about that all the time, you know, when the first, because actually the Vikings were the first ones here before Columbus was. But if they would have changed how they treated the people, because we're very hospitable people. We invite people in, we make sure they're fed. So I don't know if it would change knowing what the end result was. I don't know.
That is what's happening this day. People that you welcome them and you open your house and just they stab you behind your back. I mean, it's still the history repeat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, to make a difference. If we look back, those men make a difference. Gandhi, Martin King Jr., Jesus Christ, all them.
Yeah.
They didn't
Mother
live the long.
Teresa.
Mother
Yeah.
Teresa and Mr. Mandela, all those Malcolm X. They speak the truth. They stand for the truth. But did they last long? No. But they did impact. They make a difference.
A big impact, yeah.
Yes,
You
we
know,
don't have to live longer to make a difference because it's been given to us every day to make a difference.
Yeah.
So we have to speak the truth. We have to stand by what we believe is right,
yeah.
even if it costs your life.
Yeah, because even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. mentioned indigenous people when he spoke. You know, he had that love for indigenous people. You know, talk about an advocate. You know, on what he did for the civil rights movement. You know, and there's still a lot of action that needs to be done today, but that was only in the 60s.
That's right. 66.
You know, Native Americans didn't get our citizenship.
I didn't know that. You
Yes.
were not citizen?
Yes, we did not get our citizenship until the 50s.
How? You guys
Really?
are here.
Yeah.
This is your
So
home.
we couldn't vote. Yeah.
I didn't
no.
know that part.
When they put us on reservations, now remember they didn't give the best land. You know, they wanted that for themselves. So we got reservations here in the United States that don't have electricity or water.
In the United States.
In the United
today,
States
in
today.
2023.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it really showed during the COVID epidemic, especially down there on the Navajo reservation. It was spreading like crazy because they didn't have running water. You know, and it just baffles me that a lot of people's got this misconception that Native Americans, you know, they get all this money from the
Yeah.
government. That
Yeah, I heard that too. I heard that too.
No, that is not the case at all. So that's what I mean. We got reservations that are, you know, there's no industry, there's no farming. You know, like I said, they didn't give the best land with resources. You know,
That's probably a way back, but do you think now they're more lenient about it? About giving grants, maybe, and giving.
there are a lot of grants out there, but it's not solely just for indigenous people. It's for you know um, anybody that is in poverty areas. So it could be for the Hispanic, it could be Black, it could be indigenous. But there are grants out there that they have to do. But in my opinion, they shouldn't have to do that. There's now we're probably getting way off the topic, but but there's so many treaties out there between the government and Native Americans that were not upheld.
Right.
When are Native Americans going to get justice on that? Right now, we're just talking about the women and the murder and the missing, the abuse. Justice for that.
Yes. But
there's so much injustice.
Have you guys seen the movie Wind River?
Yes.
No,
Yeah, that was really good. 2017, Mr. Taylor Sheridan was the director. He said, and I just wanted to share, he wrote the film to raise awareness of the issue of the high number of indigenous women who are raped and murdered, both on and off reservations.
Yeah.
And it was pretty well attended because they only have like 11 million budget and it went over 45 million.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And I love that because there are a lot of movies getting made about that now, so it helps with the awareness of it. And I love that just last spring at the federal level they passed the Not Invisible Act was introduced. So, and that was the House and the Senate's way of saying we need to come with a way to bring a community together, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's tribal government, federal partners, more to get together and work together to try to fight this. I'm going to call it an epidemic because it's an epidemic on the Native side. So I'm glad that's starting to come into fruition now. So I think that's going to make a difference, having the ability for all of them to communicate with one another.
Yes. So we're wearing today red. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
So red is the color that represents MMIW. A lot of times you might see a red handprint over the mouth, and that also represents, our voices are going to be heard. No more stolen sisters, and no more silence about it. So, so we all are wearing red today to stand in solidarity for the missing, murdered, and indigenous women. And I'm going to add the girls, our elders and our men too, because it's affecting us at astronomical rates. And I definitely want to touch a little bit more about the boarding schools, because a lot of people don't know what that is. So boarding schools were run by the religious ministries. So we had a lot of, obviously they were trying to remove the Indian in the children, so they all had their hair cut when they got there. They changed from their traditional clothing into European style clothing. Obviously there was a language barrier too. The native kids spoke their native languages. And I definitely want to point out there that not all tribes are the same. Each tribe has their own language, their own cultures. There were similarities, obviously, but they were all different. So it was hard for the children to communicate amongst themselves. But, they would get beat, tortured, raped for speaking their native language. And this happened at all levels.
So that's inside the school?
Inside the school. So there was a lot of abuse there. For the children who did make it home, you can imagine how traumatic that is for that child. And if there's no resources there, when you think about that time, even now, that's traumatic for anybody to experience. But I think now we have resources that kind of help a person or a child through something like that. But back then, there wasn't. So I think that then started that generational trauma and abuse. So I personally, I'm not a scholar or anything, but I personally definitely stem everything back from that time because it definitely changed not only the parents who lost their children, the children who didn't come home. When they went up to report it. So really it started way back when the parents are saying our child didn't come home. There was no one there to look for them. And now, a few years ago, they're finding mass graves with children in them.
So they forced them to take them to boarding school.
The children were taken away.
Why?
Taken away.
Why is that? You think why they force somebody's children to take them?
They
to
wanted
school?
to change them. They wanted, it's easier to change a child and teach them English and everything else as far as an adult. So that was the plan, was that we're going to take the Indian out of the child. So they sent them to the boarding schools, and for any child who is taken from their parents, going to an area they didn't know, losing their identity, not being able to communicate how they feel, not only with the people who are in charge, but their fellow, their peers, because they didn't speak the same language a lot of times. So very traumatic experience for those children.
So ESL wasn't born yet then?
Yeah, no.
I just have to throw that in, right?
Yeah.
But the trauma, say you are the product, the generation passed. So that child experienced this such dramatic, he cannot express, speak, the rape, and all that. Then they grow, they become wife or husband. Or parents. This just go through. It did not stop there. Because even though she then came the same for with slavery, black, it did not stop there. So we just
until now,
we still dealing with that.
Yeah.
Psychological, we're still dealing with that. But
and I think that's where that importance of the acknowledgement needs to come
we have
from.
to acknowledge. We
that
cannot
this
ignore
happens.
it.
We need to do a change trajectory course for the people so they could heal.
Exactly.
That's right.
And
because these are still happening today.
It's still
Even though
happening today.
we want to kind of turn our back, it's still happening. But we have to use our voice in the education of it. And then figure out like what's out there. What's the resources out there that we can connect out? Now, do you think it was one tribe more than the other one that was different ones?
No, I don't think it was one tribe that was more than the other. I think when they went in to get the children, they were doing it for all tribes across the nation. There's boarding schools that were in the United States and all the way up through Canada.
It's just so sad that back then we don't have this rules or guide to follow, I guess.
Yeah. But even then, when you think about, removing children, even now, when you think about something like that happening, at least there's stuff around to protect them. There's checks and balances. When you think of like foster care, for example, they still have their checks and balances. Now the people are responsible for doing that, checks and balances. But I think it is there for them. But back then, there was no one there to help those children.
Back then, even though we don't have this set of rules, I mean, as a person, why do you have to do that?
And I think that comes from them having that Native Americans were less than.
But that's even today.
Yeah.
There's cultures now still think that you are less than.
Yeah. So they treat you like you're less than.
Yeah.
So what can we do now? We can say people can. What can we do for us to not be treated like that? We know we're not less than. What can we do?
Be the voice.
I know I'm not less than you. You can think like that. But what can we do? We won't be treated like that.
Yeah. Stand up and say something.
Yes.
You got to correct it
Exactly.
on the spot. And I definitely will correct it on the spot. But some people don't have that. So if you see something happening, step up.
Yes.
Because I even tell my kids that, when they're going through school, is that not everybody is treated the same. I was like, some kids get bullied in school. I go, don't be the bully,
Right.
and always be the one to step up for that child,
Yes.
because no one else is going to. And the same with an adult. You know, you have to be the one to step up for someone if you see injustice done.
Exactly. Even if it costs you your life.
There's a lot going on also, that if you're the one who step up, you will be the next that they're gonna bully.
Yeah, that's the chance I would take.
Yeah.
I would stand up
Because you stand
anyway.
up. Oh, I'll take that.
That's what I say. You know, don't live life without any regrets.
No, exactly.
Don't
I'm
live.
glad you said that.
If I see, I don't know, a lady on the corner getting mugged, I'm not gonna drive by. I might run the guy over with my car. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm gonna stop and take some type of action, depending on what it is. Otherwise, I will not be able to sleep that night.
You like conscious. That's why last week, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about when you see something, God or the divine, He show you for a reason to correct it. And some of us, again, we like, if I say something that, oh, people, they don't like me, so what? They don't like me. I'm okay with not like me. For me to do the right thing, I will do, because I will deal with my conscience. And I want to be peaceful with my conscience. And
Yeah.
so we have work to do. I mean,
A lot of work to do. And I think a good starting point for you know, people in the audience is really, you know, check out the movies that are out there now that are talking about the missing, murdered Indigenous women. There's books out there now. The federal government with that Not Invisible Act, you know, research on that and what that's about. There are changes that are going on right now, but like I mentioned before, we need advocacy. We need people out there that can be the voice for those who do not have a voice.
Yes.
You know, and it even has me thinking of the families. You know, the moms that are going to the law enforcement. You know, saying my child is gone. My daughter did not come home, and she would never leave her child. You know, they're pleading for help, and they're not getting it.
And with the stat of saying you got to wait 24 to 48 hours. No, there needs to be a better system.
It has
than
to be
that.
now.
Yeah, because you know, people know their family members. You know which ones will come home at night and which ones don't.
That's right.
You know, so to me, if a mother is in panic mode saying her child is missing, that child is missing.
That's it.
And when I say child, most people think of little kids, but my son's 32. He's still my baby.
child.
That's right.
Exactly.
He is still my baby, and I'm still responsible
Yeah.
for him.
Forever.
Forever. Yes.
I think there was a question
In the
up here.
Philippines,
Okay.
if you're living at home, hey, parents
Yeah.
are still responsible of you.
So that was Ms. Barnes said, how do you feel about the federal government trying to indirectly close reservation across the country? And how do we call these elected officials out?
Very good question. I think everybody who can vote should be able to call out those officials. They're there to serve us, and if they're not doing what they said they were going to do, it's time to call them out or don't vote for them. You know, I think we as a people, we got so much power in voting, and I definitely, the first time I got to vote in a voting poll was when I retired from the Marine Corps. So the first time I went to a voting poll was in 2016.
Wow.
All the other ones I had to do absentee ballot, and to me, it's there, but it wasn't the same as me going in that voting booth and voting. So I think as the people, we have that, and especially with Native Americans, we just got that right to vote. You know, 60 years ago. When you think about that, that's You know, so use that, and everybody should know who their elected officials are, and you could track them. You could track on what they're standing for, what they're voting for, what they're not voting for, and to me, when it's time for them for that re-election, let your voice be heard.
Yes. And say it.
And say it.
I believe in having community meetings and invite them to come to your community meeting.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do, because we will vote and we'll put them in office and we don't see nothing else of them. invite them to come to your events.
Yeah.
Invite them to be the speaker, and you'll be able to ask them questions. Because until we started holding them accountable, things are going to keep going on.
Oh, yeah.
We've got to get to the point that we hold these people accountable.
Oh, yeah.
For.
And we don't need a big generation gap from those people
that's
who
right.
are making the laws and we need those young people in there
Yes,
to get
yes,
in
we
there,
do.
make a change, you know, and an 80-year-old person in Congress does not know anything about a 20-year-old. And he's
I would
making
agree.
the rules and laws that affects that 20-year-old for his adult life.
Right.
You know, some people are very disengaged or detached from the realities of our world. So we need to get people in office that knows our reality.
I believe that. That's why I always say that's why there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. They go together. They need to be bringing people in to be training them for it. And I don't think they should stay in positions forever.
Oh, no.
I think there should be a limit time.
Raquel, I just want to ask something. Are there any Native American in the office, the White House, that helping you guys represent
Yes,
you?
we just got our first ladies were elected to under Obama. Yeah, but it's sad because it's just now happening.
2008. What?
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah,
It's just starting to
That's
diversify
what I-
stuff.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's
Sad.
crazy sad. Like you've been from the beginning, and you how many? 200-300 years.
we've been here for thousands of years.
Yeah, so 1,000.
We've
Well, I'm
been
saying
here
after they came corners.
But yeah,
like 3, 4,
200.
yeah,
Yeah.
2,
What's that?
3.
How many years? What's our 1775 or
So-
something like that?
And it ain't like we don't know because the census got everything down
Yeah.
supposedly. So I'm like, well, I don't know what they do with that census.
But you know what,
paperwork.
though? Let's always look in the bright side. It's not too late. I mean, you know,
Oh, yeah,
one
it's
step
not
at
too
a
late.
time.
It's not too late, but if we don't do it,
We gotta get
it's gonna
involved.
be late. We're gonna be
Yeah.
behind.
Yes.
So it has to start now.
Yeah.
And we have to start talking now and take action. And talking sometimes does not do nothing until you have to go to be the first person to make a difference. Not
Yeah.
everybody here to make a difference. They have opportunity, but not everybody. So we're not waiting for savior. Sometimes you have to be the one that save.
That's true.
And it starts with one person. I mean, look at what the lady did down in Georgia. She turned that whole state
Upside down.
What she
upside
do?
down.
I
Yeah.
what she do?
I'm about to call her name. It
Yeah.
was,
She's
Oh my
running
God.
for governor.
yes.
Good for her.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. Oh my gosh. But she changed the state.
Yes.
She, changed it from Republican to Democrat.
Right.
See,
One person.
I can't even think of her name. But because I think everybody gets so caught up in the political party that they're missing, we need help here. We need help there. What can you do? I wish they would do away with political parties. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm
to
with
find
you on
out
that.
what can we do. We need help, and we need to hold people accountable, and we need to have our voices known. Because even in this area, sometimes people tell me to run for office. I said no, because I don't want nobody to tie me down. Because I'm gonna say what I need to say. But when I get in position, you might try to tell me, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. But on the outside, I can tell you a whole lot because we gotta hold them
Accountable. That's
Yeah.
right.
and I love what every one of us is doing different things for our culture to bring. Because my African American is suppressed.
Yes.
If they're poor and they're bad, they don't get that information. So my job is to get a team with me to go out. But I'm not mad with you when you do it. We should celebrate each other. Just get to that point where we celebrate
Yeah.
each culture. And today you have taught all of us about the indigenous stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's a good it's a good starting point to educate yourself on it because it's out there. You know, unfortunately, you won't learn it in school or that type of stuff. But we're at that world now where technology is at your fingertips.
Yes.
Get on there, do your research, and then there's a lot of organizations right now that are giving voice to MMIW. A lot of organizations that are advocating. A lot of them are looking for funds. You know, so do your research. You know, just type in MMIW, and there's going to be some organizations that pop up. And I'm not one to tell you which one to pick, because that's all on you as an individual person. You know, just do your due diligence when you're doing that. But there's people out there advocating. They need more people advocating. I need you to advocate.
I need you to advocate.
Yes.
Also, don't forget to write something about your mom this coming Mother's Day. We have received several writing contests over here. We have great prizes. Our deadline is May 10th. Please keep it coming. And also, next week, we are going to tap in the AAPI, what do you call this? Because the month of May is AAPI month. So we'll see you next week. We have a great host, or what do you call this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will be on the show.
Will be Manang Rosita Lee from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, so she'll be joining us from Las Vegas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's when I need to go. I need a vacation to Las Vegas.
Oh, I'm with you. Take me.
So again, you know, please go and read about this right here. Get involved in your community, make your voice known, and look, not just for you, take the generations behind you and get them involved. Teach them the lessons, because if we don't do it, you cannot blame nobody in the school system to do it. We got to take responsibility now and move forward. But again, thank you guys for joining Colorful Voices. We enjoyed you, and we enjoy this lesson today.
So see you next week, Dr. Rosita Lee.
Oh, that was awesome.
At L'Amour Media Versatility, we aim to provide comprehensive solutions to our clients. We have a team of experienced professionals who can help you with every aspect of your media needs. From documentation and marketing to promotion and more, we provide our clients with top-notch quality services. We understand that each client is unique and has specific needs. That's why our team works closely with you to understand your company and event goals and objectives. We are committed to providing the highest quality services in media and strive to exceed our clients' expectations. Our team is passionate about helping you reach your goals and making sure you get the best experience and results. If you're looking for a reliable business to help you with all your media needs, look no further than L'Amour Media Versatility. Contact us today to get started at 252-497-3817 or at www.lamour-photos.com.